Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime, where we explore the current cases and past cases and go deep into what happened in those moments. The best we can, of course. Here is my focus: to help you stay on top of what you need to know, what to be aware of, how to stay alert. I'm no expert at things, but I tell you, you always want to be aware of your surroundings, right? You want to be aware of those you're trusting. Some people you can, some people you cannot, right? And that's the whole focus of this channel, to keep you updated. And we got some news. We got a Brian Laundrie update, sharing those little updates with you as we get them. And I'm going to share with you a couple other cases as well, where one person shot up a Catholic supply store, and actually in the St. Louis area where I'm at. And another one where right after she breaks up with her boyfriend, she was afraid for her life. Now she has been murdered by that boyfriend. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, my friends. We're going to dive right into it because I want to keep you updated on what is going on out there. That's a big part of why I do this. And so I want to share with you a Brian Laundrie update. It's amazing what has occurred on that. Okay, so the first question that is on a lot of people's minds was that Brian Laundrie that they really found. So far, the autopsy that they did came back inconclusive. How in the world does that happen? I don't know. I thought we were dealing with pros here. And so we don't know 100% sure that that was Brian Laundrie. We still believe it was. I believe it was. A lot of, let's say, conspiracy theorists do not believe it was. They make some pretty good arguments, I will say. They make some pretty good arguments. And so that's where it's like, is this really him? So they sent his bones off to anthropologists so they can study his remains. And so, how come the autopsy didn't give that to us? I don't know. I don't know how that stuff works to really give my assessment on that. But according to Stephen Bertolino, which you guys know is Brian Laundrie's attorney, he said no manner or cause of death was determined, which also means inconclusive after the completion of the autopsy. And so his remains, there were some remains that were discovered last week at T. Mabry Carlton Reserve, which is where his parents originally said he went, to the Carlton Reserve. So, some of the other conspiracy theorists believe maybe the parents have something to do with this new finding. Because it's so odd. It's so odd, some of the things that are surrounding the way the parents found his bag, his backpack, his notebook. And so that's a little sketchy too. That's seriously a little sketchy. And so, as we know, Brian Laundrie has been a person of interest since 5 weeks now? And now that these remains are believed to be Brian, again, still inconclusive, the family doesn't plan to bury him. They just plan to cremate Brian Laundrie's remains, and they don't plan on having a funeral. They don't plan on having a funeral. So what happens next? Well, that notebook will definitely be analyzed, right? They're going to go through that notebook. I'm curious what's in that notebook Maybe it holds some of the key to what's going on. And so, we will only wait to find out, because from all we knew on October 21st, dental records confirmed that the human remains discovered were supposed to be Brian Laundrie. But how come the autopsy doesn't show that? And so, according to, we don't know how he died, but Stephen Bertolino, he says, Brian, to my knowledge, was never quoted saying anything suicidal. I'm paraphrasing. And he says ultimately Brian was in a bad state of mind when he left. Why? Even the parents said Brian was upset about this whole thing. Why? Because he knew what happened to Gabby Petito. Right? He knew what happened to Gabby Petito. Of course, it's easy to speculate what he could be upset about. Was he upset about the breakup? Was he upset about, he hadn't seen her in a while? So obviously, the attorney can say a lot of different things. But, he comes back, Brian Laundrie comes back September 1st. No one knows where he's at. Right? And so now we suppose that the notebook might play a role in this. I don't know if the FBI has taken it back to the lab yet. There is, of course, conspiracy theorists, what could be in that notebook. And so there's a note floating around out there online. I don't really get into that stuff. I like a little more concrete evidence than what the internet sleuths like to come up with. Most of the time I believe they're wrong. Look at all these different sightings. Maybe, and then he's found at Carlton Reserve. I don't know. That's just, more will come out. And so we know that there was remains found with a backpack that belonged to Brian Laundrie and a notebook that belonged to Brian Laundrie. And so the remains were next to Brian Laundrie, right? Or his belongings anyway. And so, according to Bertolino, Laundrie's attorney, he says the family the FBI has everything they need. It does not look like they have anything to go after the Laundrie family for. I don't know about that, because if you think about it, they spent a lot of money putting all through. If the remains are completely confirmed to be Brian Laundrie, then there's probably a good chance they are not going to be in any hot water. As long as it's found that is Brian Laundrie. Because if that's not Brian Laundrie, and then all of a sudden, it's found with remains, and it's found with a backpack that belonged to him, and man, this could take some really crazy turns if that ends up not being. Personally, I believe that it's going to be Brian. But the back of my mind says this is so odd, where they finally open up the park so people can come and come back into the park. The family decides we're going to go to a spot that he frequented. And you didn't say this to anyone sooner? And then they go over there and boom, lo and behold, they find some stuff that belongs to him. And I'm telling you, I just find that shady. And Bertolino, he believes that the FBI has been informed by everything they need from Christopher Laundrie and Roberta Laundrie. We'll see. Again, we'll see. There's going to be more that keeps rolling out of this. This is exactly why I'm even updating on this, because there's going to be more. I mean, if he was there this whole time, how did this get overlooked? And the next question is, how can there already be bones all over? Like, how could his whole body be in bones? Because even if he was ripped apart by animals, wouldn't there be something left over? Wouldn't there be something left over? So that's where it gets a little dicey, And so Bertolino, he knows that Brian was upset when he left, and they tried to persuade him not to leave the house, and they said they couldn't. Why was he so upset? Because he knows something. It's obvious he knew something. I mean, it gets no more easier than that. Bertolino says the Laundrie family don't have any clue what's in that notebook. They don't have any clue. So my question is, did they find just the backpack and no notebook with it? And someone else found the notebook? I believe that might have been what happened. So if they don't know, that would make sense. Maybe it's telling of what he did, and so he's sharing it in his notebook. And so we're definitely, we're hoping to know if he's been out and about. If he was last seen on September 13th when he left his parents' house in Northport to go to the Carlton Reserve, and so 6 days later is when he was reported missing by his family, and so, or what was it, 4 days later, that Friday. So Monday, and then Friday he's reported missing. But how much do the parents know? Okay, before we even get into that, there's no doubt in my mind that they know a little more than they're sharing. No doubt whatsoever. No doubt whatsoever. And so it remains to be seen what will happen next. We can only wait. We can only wait because eventually they will have to have some conclusive evidence. This is Brian Laundrie. Wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you agree? And if the family, if the mom and dad find the notebook, or should I say the backpack, so I think they might have found the notebook, were they inches away from finding these remains? Because the remains was supposed to be next to it. So like that's why it's so odd, this whole thing. It's like the more you dive into it, the more it's like, okay, all of a sudden, the parents help find him? And you guys have been searching this 25,000 acre place for how long now? That to me is a little weird on its own. On its own, that's a little weird. At least in my opinion. At least in my opinion. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments what you think about that. What do you think about Brian Laundrie and sharing this? What do you think about that? And so the next story I want to share is the Catholic store shooter. Here in the local area, here in my local area, about 3 years ago was when I remember this in the news. I totally remember this in the news. And now he's finally sentenced to life in prison without parole. So Thomas Bruce is sentenced to life in prison for the Catholic store killing and assaults. So he went into a Catholic store. Now, he's a former pastor as well. He's a former pastor who did this. And so he walks into this Catholic store and he walks around, grabs a few items, goes up to the counter, tells the lady, the cashier, I gotta go to my car, and he comes back with a gun. Comes back with a gun and holds up these, I believe, 3 women. 2 women. Hold on. It might be 3. Yeah. 3 women. So he holds up 3 women. And here, Thomas Bruce, he holds up 3 women. And he sexually assaults all 3 women. Or two women. The one woman that refused to go with his orders, she was shot in the head. She was killed after she refused his sexual assault. Rest in peace, Jamie Schmidt. And Jamie she was not going to do it. She was not going to do it. She obviously knew what was at stake. She was not going to do it. And he killed her for it. Sad as that can possibly be. Rest in peace, 53-year-old Jamie Schmidt. And so she died in 2018 when this occurred. And so this past Friday, from today, he changed his plea, admitting to this heinous crime. Now, he was going to start his trial next week because he went in and said, I'm innocent of this. He pleaded not guilty. And they were going to start the trial next week. What do you suppose changed that? What do you suppose changed that? So, he changed his plea because of an incident that he did a couple months earlier in Jefferson County. In Jefferson County, he did this same thing to a woman. He did the same thing. And so he was being held against that as well. And when he was being charged for this Catholic supply store shooting, the lady in Jefferson County recognized him on the news when they were sharing this, when they were reporting on this. She recognized him, and then she called the authorities to tell them about him doing that to her. And so this guy was in the news a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but like this was the third time he's done something crazy. So in 2018 seems like where a lot of it was falling apart for this guy. And earlier in 2018, he was involved with a road rage incident. He was involved with a road rage incident where he deliberately caused a crash on US Highway 61. Wow, right? And there's dash cam video footage of him just berating the Missouri State Trooper. And just really basically shouting at him and saying, "You work for me," one of those people. "I pay your taxes, mother effer." And that was his quotes to the responding officer about a crash that Thomas Bruce caused. And so not only was he a former pastor, but he is also a Navy veteran. He must have really, something must have really started taking some twist in this guy's life. You know, I'm not a psychologist. I don't want to try to play one, but I know that people can have hiccups or issues that go through them internally they cannot control. But you have to pay the price for whatever you cause. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. And so it's obvious that these tips, especially from the 77-year-old woman who recognized him on TV after the Catholic supply store shooting, her tip into the easily helped cause some of this, that he was convicted and even changed his plea, because he was definitely going to go down for this. No doubt about that. And so he is sentenced to life. Sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. And here is a picture of him again. He was 56 years old, and he's from Imperial, Missouri. And this incident at the supply store is right there in Baldwin, where I'm literally there I am there just every day, literally every day. And so He was convicted. He will spend the rest of his life without the possibility of parole. And so there you go. He will be gone in there for a while. And so our last story we want to share with you is she was murdered after her breakup with her boyfriend. And here is another, and I'm telling you, I wish it wasn't this way, but it seems like there's so much domestic violence. I feel like this needs to be heard. Guys, if it's you that's causing this problem, you gotta understand these stories, they're here for a reason, because things happen. People lose their cool. Does that sound like you? Catch yourself now. Ladies, does that sound like you losing your cool and doing something that you regret? Catch yourself now. Because this is in the news way too much. Way too much. And it's like, how does this keep occurring? And so here we are, this amazing North Carolina woman. She was scared about her breakup she just had, only to be killed by her ex, the one she broke up with. And this is a murder-suicide case where he murdered her, and when the police closed in on him, he turned the gun on himself as they were closing in on him. And so you have this amazing woman taken way too soon. Her name, Zamega Whitfield. Rest in peace, Zamega Whitfield. And so her older sister even says about her, she was everything. Whenever you hear people talk like that, it's obvious they left a big impact on people's lives. And so, she was in an alleged abusive relationship with her ex-boyfriend. And now here she was going to leave this relationship. She's been wanting to leave this relationship for a while. She was trying to leave this relationship for a while, and now she was shot to death. She was only 25 years old. And so she's been trying to break up with this 20-year-old Michael Culpepper because of these problems. She already had fear for what he was capable of. She already had fear of this and breaking up with him. What is he capable of? And that's where it gets really sad, because it was obvious. It was obvious she knew this may not end well. She was afraid of what will happen. And to me, that even adds so much more to this sadness. Adds so much more. And so officers were called to Fayetteville in North Carolina, a neighborhood there, on Thursday morning just before 7:30 in the morning. So it was early morning. And according to a statement by the police, the preliminary investigation revealed a male subject shot a female subject, and then a nearby resident contacted 911 to report the incident. And as the statement continues, responding officers located an adult male on his knees outside of the residence in the roadway holding a handgun. As the first officer was arriving, the male subject turned the handgun on himself and shot himself. He obviously knew he was going to be paying for this. And whenever this happens, it's hard to get justice now for the family. The coward knew it was not going to end well for him, and he was going to end up in prison for the rest of his life. And obviously, he did not want that. And so here he is, dead, and he took his own life as the coward he is. And so her older sister, she's like about her, like, she was amazing. She was my baby. She was so smart. She was everything. So this amazing North Carolina woman taken at the age of 25. And according to her sister, she says, I guess last night they had got into it or whatever. And then he had busted my mom's rent-a-car window because they were moving stuff into her house. So they were moving her out of there, bringing her into mom's house, and he was upset and busted her window. Man, I wish they would have called the cops last night or something. The next morning, my mom said Whitfield was already scared. And I don't even know, how do you prevent this? How do you prevent this? If the cops are there the night before, he's already got it in him to do this. If the cops are already there and they take him in, he's going to get out. I mean, like, how do you prevent this? This is where it gets so hard when these type of things occur. How do you prevent that? Because he had it in him to do it, and that's why he did it. Because it was in him to do it. What led him down this road? I don't know. But there you have it. She breaks up, or actually, she might not have even gotten to the full breakup, but she's murdered after wanting to break up with this guy for so long. And here goes Culpepper. He's not going to live without her, I guess. Like, my friends, thank you again for joining me today. My goal is to help you stay alert, to help you stay aware, to help you know what is going on around you. What are people capable of? You never know. You never know. We all probably at one time in our life want to do everything right, but we're humans and we don't do everything right. But you have to learn what causes these things. What causes this momentary lapse of reasoning in people. I'm not a psychologist. I don't claim to be one. I have no clue what people go through. But I know that when you have something going on, you want to deal with it. You cannot let it go. Because the worst of the worst, like I've described today, can happen. Thank you for being a part of the show today. This is Deep True Crime, where we explore further true crime cases today, past, and what's going on. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.